Bruce committee for actually what the date is 23rd of January. May I welcome all members and officers to the hybrid meeting of the Economy and Environmental Overall Scrutiny Committee. It's a mouthful, isn't it? This meeting is able to be viewed live by members of the press and public today. Therefore, may I welcome anyone who may be watching remotely. A recording of this meeting may be made available for Council's webcasting and YouTube channels after the meeting has concluded, should anybody else wish to view it. To confirm, as a Council, we welcome the use of the Welsh language with our public meetings, but I can confirm that I have not received any notification or requests to use Welsh today. Therefore, the meeting will be conducted in English only. May I also remind members to refrain from using the chat facility. Instead, use the raised hand icon to indicate whether you wish to speak. Please could you also keep your microphone muted when not talking, so there are not any interruptions encountered. May I also remind members, as per statutory guidance, under the Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask that you all please use your cameras through the duration of the meeting? I think everybody's on there. Great, lovely. Moving on to the agenda. Can Neil, our Democratic Services Officer, confirm that he received any apologies? I believe Neil's not there. Somebody else in that role, is it?
No, it is me, Chair. It's Niall. We have apologies.
Niall.
Yeah, we have apologies, Chair, from Councillors Norma Parish and Nathan Yole.
Thank you very much indeed. I noticed Councillor Haynes is here. Hello, Councillor Haynes. And so that's only one person I have to move. Item number 2. Declarations of interest. Could I ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any declaration? Well, I think the usual thing, as we say at these meetings, rather than alphabetical order. I believe I'm right and correct saying this. If you have any declarations of interest, could you please raise them as we go along? Am I correct on that? Am I going? Great.
Yeah, either if any members have got anything they want to declare now, they can. But yeah, like you said, if anything crops up throughout the meeting, please do it then.
Anybody got anything they wish to declare? No, well, we do the usual other thing then. And if you've got anything that occurs to you, please let us know. Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda, minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of November. Just to remind members, these minutes relate to the report received on green space management. Members, do you approve these minutes? Do you have anything you wish to erase from these minutes? If not, do you approve these minutes as per accurate record? Just deafening silence, so you approve. Great, lovely. Nothing's been raised. That's lovely. Thank you. Item 4, action sheet. Please could members confirm that they have any questions and whether they are happy to note the action sheet. I don't think there's anything on there, is there? Great, thank you, David. I saw your thumb. And right, then we come on to the matter in mid-year review of work programme. Garrett, can you please take members through this item? I thought there was this item here.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Item 5 is a short report to give members the opportunity to review your work programme for the remainder of the scrutiny year. You'll see from the appendices you have been provided with a condensed feeder pack containing up-to-date information from the current work programme, the Executive Forward Plan, Governance and Audit Referrals, the Risk Register and performance information, including progress against the County Plan Delivery Plan. Can I highlight to members, this is not the opportunity to scrutinise individual items contained within the feeders or performance information, but offers the chance to pose questions to officers where you may identify potential issues within this information that may warrant a reprioritisation of items for the remaining 2 committee meetings. You'll see from the work programme selected at Visioning, the items selected for the remaining 2 meetings are Highway Asset Management Plan, and that's followed by raise the rate or just recycling. So basically, can I ask members, are there any questions or concerns you'd like to raise from within the additional feeder information or performance detailed? So there's opportunity for members first, and then I'll bring in officers if there's anything they want to add.
Right, so we go asset management and highway asset management, raise the rate. There's the three on offer, is it?
So your next item
asset management is what we're doing now, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's highway
right,
asset.
This is cycle 3. So cycle 4, you're scheduled to do highway asset management plan, and cycle 5 is going to be recycling. So it's just. Is there anything within the appendices for item 5 that you'd like to raise with either? We've got Mark Thomas and Dan Morelli on the screen, and obviously we've got Gareth Beer ready for the main item today as well. So the 3 officers are here to answer any questions or comments you've got. Thanks.
So anybody want any? I can't see any yellow hand. Sorry, Dave Williams. Yes, and Linda. Linda, you're first. Sorry.
I think Dave's first, but I'm happy to go if Dave's okay with that.
Sorry, Dave's first. I got this light problem again.
Sorry. All I was going to say, Chair, is from what I could see with the risks, we've picked up those things. My only question was really from officers: were they happy with the order, or did they feel that the raise the rate should be brought forward? Simple question.
Good question there.
Chair, if I can answer that, if I may. Yes, I think raise the rate. We're looking to have the recycling strategy complete by the end of March. So I would suggest it'd be an opportune time at that time then really to come in on the 10th of April with the report as well. So I think it'd be more a fuller report by then once the strategy has been completed. So subject to members' approval, I'm happy to keep the highway asset management plan on the 6th of March. The reason being for that as well is that there are murmurings at Welsh Government in terms of another round of local government borrowing initiative, which could be targeted at highway asset management as well. So what we're working hard to do is to refresh the prioritisation of our highway asset management plan. Councillor Slade, you'd be very, very well aware of the work that's undertaken there, so that we can present to members then some plans going forward and some prioritised measures should that additional funding come forward.
Thank you very much, sir. David, do you want to come back at all?
Fine, Chair.
Great. Linda?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to take the opportunity, it's more regarding the reserve item, really. Are we aware of anything new that's come up on the coal tip management strategy since we discussed the reserve baskets and our order?
Chair, if I may. Yes, we're still waiting for Welsh Government in terms of the white paper. What we suspect is going to happen there is that the coal board, or they've been renamed now, haven't they? But there'll be a separate body developed that will ensure and oversee coal tips. So effectively, there'll be a duty upon the authority to still manage its coal tips, but then obviously there'll be a separate body which we think will then be responsible for overviewing the private tips as well. That paper is still in abeyance at the moment. It's with Welsh Government. Once we get that, obviously we can then inform our coal tip strategy going forward.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much for that update, Mark.
Did Councillor Slade want to come back, as you mentioned? You're content there, Alan?
No, not at all. No, I am quite happy with doing the asset management plan next meeting. Brilliant.
Right, thank you there. So that everybody's content about this. Gareth, are you okay with all that? You got all that down?
Yeah, all I was just going to check was there anything? Obviously, Mark has spoken about the 2 items. I just didn't know if there was anything that Dan or Gareth wanted to bring to members' attention. If not, then Mark and Dan are free to leave after this item. That's all I was going to say, Chair. Thanks.
Linda, have you got a legacy hand up, by the way?
Apologies, sticky buttons.
Ah, there's something that need unsticking. Sorry. Okay, Dan and the other two officers, anything you wish to add, or are you happy, content?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Nothing to add from my perspective.
Mark?
Sorry, Gareth.
Chair, will you put...
I was yeah, nothing from me either. Thanks, Chair.
Well, you're free to go. Mark?
Chair, with your permission, I'd like to stay, obviously, because I have interest in the corporate asset management plan for properties as well, if that's okay.
You are most welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, great. So that's that item attended to. Pardon me while I play with my piece of equipment here to get us back on track. Ugh, I didn't think it was going to do that. Right, so we go on to item number 6, which is I'm fiddling with about 2 computers here at the moment, which is good. The 2025 to 2030 asset management strategy was item number 6 on your agenda. The purpose of this report to provide the committee with a draft to the proposed 25 to 30 asset management strategy for consideration, together with the associated integrated impact assessment. May I welcome Councillor Joanne Gordon, Executive Member for Economy, Skills and Regeneration, Gareth Beer, Head of Economy, Place, and Dan Morris, Group Leader for Property Asset Management Meeting. Can I ask officers, as they would provide members with a brief over the main thing with the report, and then I will invite members to ask officers questions. Would you like to? So who's going to kick off on this one?
I will, if that's okay, Councillor Ashley.
Yes, I was waiting, Joanne, for you to do that as well. It doesn't say that on my script, but it's always the exec member kicks off as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ashley, for the invite today as well, and good morning, members. So today we have the draft asset management strategy to consider, which is a work in progress, and your comments and recommendations for improvement and development will be welcomed. These will help shape the final draft before reporting for approval to Cabinet. Although many of the key principles of the current strategy remain valid and appropriate, there is a shift in the approach in the draft strategy, with more of a focus on data-driven decision-making, a hybrid corporate landlord model to manage 7 categories or assets, and a clearer picture of where we are with our maintenance priorities. So I'll hand over to Gareth Beer to take us through the report.
Thanks, Councillor Gordon. Morning, members. So I wasn't planning to talk through the report in detail, more give an overall summary, because I'm assuming members will have had a chance to kind of read through the report and obviously the draft strategy that was attached. So if that's okay, I'll summarise rather than kind of turn the pages. So as Councillor Gordon has mentioned already, the strategy that has been shared for the committee to review and comment on is a proposed new asset management strategy for the council for the period 2025 to 2030, so a new kind of 5-year time frame that replaces the effectively the current asset management strategy, which is actually out of date, which ran from 2019 to 2023. So the new strategy that's been shared is very much a kind of working draft. It'll be going through a number of kind of further stages, going to Cabinet in February, and will be being presented alongside the Council's 25-26 budget in the first week of March. So it's a really good time to be having a conversation around thoughts and comments on the draft strategy. Again, as Councillor Gordon has mentioned, many of the principles within the existing asset management strategy hold valid. So there's been no problem with holding over for a year or so until the new strategy was put in place or has been put in place. But there are, as you will have picked up from the report, a few changes, key changes in approach proposed moving forward. So just briefly, those are around effectively making sure that we've got better information on our assets, on the assets that we hold, including the condition of the assets, to allow us to make better informed decisions within the framework of the asset management strategy. So part of the proposal will be to move the new data that's gathered, and we'll talk about that as we go through the course of the conversation this morning, I'm sure, onto a new cloud-based bespoke database, which will help us both analyse issues within the portfolio, but also, more importantly, allow decision-making to become increasingly more data-driven. The approach being taken is to segment the overall portfolio of assets. So in total, the council owns and manages over 1,000 individual assets. So part of the approach moving forward is to segment that overall total into 7 either asset classes or categories, depending on the terminology we want to use. And that will allow us to develop more tailored approaches towards different types of asset class. So, for example, the approach taken to something like the green spaces asset class would be different to the type of approach that we might take as an asset management function towards commercial property or to corporate assets. So that's a move in a slightly different direction. There's also a proposal to work closely with directorates to develop either 3 or 4 directorate asset management plans. So those would be a subset of the wider asset management strategy and would be effectively kind of bespoke plans that reflect individual service, individual directorate need, but within the wider framework of the corporate approach to managing property assets moving forward. There's also a proposal to move further towards a centralised corporate landlord model. So in the current asset management strategy, which actually came into force in 2019, the council at that point in time was talking about operating a corporate landlord approach. Corporate landlord, as you will have picked up from the strategy, is effectively where all assets are held in one central place, budgets are centralised, and these service areas effectively become tenants of the corporate landlord. And that's a fairly standard model that different authorities use across the UK. In Torvine, the proposal is to move further into the kind of hybrid corporate landlord approach, which takes us further towards having more central control over some of the decision-making processes around property, and potentially looking at centralising at least some of the property-related budgets which sit within individual service areas at the moment. The one caveat to that is that wouldn't include schools, and at least in the short term, for reasons that no doubt we'll cover this morning. So those are the kind of key principles of the approach with the new strategy. Through adopting the new strategy, we will be able to better understand the assets that we own and how they can be used to help deliver the council's strategic priorities. We'll be able to do some fairly fundamental but simple things, like aligning budgets that are spent on property management and property maintenance with known needs within the portfolio. We'll be better able to identify underperforming or poorer performing assets, identify where we think we've got surplus assets, and then make informed decisions to either improve those assets and or dispose of them. And also it allows us to identify opportunities to recycle assets for reinvestment. So part of the challenge that we have moving forward is the property portfolio is fairly old. A lot of the stock that we own is 30, 40, possibly 50 years old, and has had limited maintenance over the years. So decisions will need to be made sooner rather than later around potentially kind of disposing of some assets so we can reinvest in the ones that we want to keep, to maintain the integrity of the property that we own and also the income stream moving forward as well. And then just quickly in terms of next steps, as we touched on, really interested to receive feedback today from members of the committee around any comments on the draft strategy. As I mentioned, the next stage after that will be to implement those recommendations, to include those with other changes that might take place to the strategy, and then read it through the Cabinet and Council cycle so that we have an effectively adopted new asset management strategy by early March 2025. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Your summary anticipates our questions, which we have about 23. So without much ado, I'll kick off with number one, which is Councillor Nick Horler.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome.
You were the chair there, Nick, aren't you? Yeah, in the chamber.
Welcome. And welcome, Dan, to your, I believe, your very, very first scrutiny meeting. It's nice to see you in a position where you're sitting. First of all, I think I might have to make a declaration of interest, thinking on long term, is that I was actually a tenant of Torfaen County Council for nearly 10 years. So I have an understanding of being on the other side of this policy. So the first one on the list is about objectives. It talks about the Future Generations Act of 2015. It also talks about unlocking the potential of assets that will help Council pay for a stronger role supporting communities in resilience, as well as addressing key challenges in the poor health and declining biodiversity of the climate change. So my question is, the report states that unlocking the potential of our assets will also help councils play a stronger role supporting community resilience. Please could you provide some examples of what sort of things have or can be done within this area? Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, in response to that, I think it's getting a better understanding of the requirements of our assets at the moment. I think probably some of our assets at the moment are underutilised, and as in the content of the strategy, we're going to be looking to commission suitability surveys, and what those suitability surveys will do is effectively somebody goes around, appraises space. Excuse if everybody knows what those are, but just put a bit of context behind it. Somebody will go in independently and assess the space that's being used, how much use. Obviously, there's lots of flexible working at the minute. Aren't people just coming in the mornings and using desk space and then going out at the end of the day? So I think it's getting a better understanding of our assets and how else they could be used then, whether that's repurposing them for people within the community that could use them, or potentially, like Gareth mentioned about rationalisation, could they be sold? So I think it's getting an understanding of our properties and how else they could be used, and just delving a little bit further into that strategy, talking about these sort of directorate asset management plans and the 7 classifications. Hopefully, by understanding the requirements of different departments, then as well, we can sort of look across the properties and go and make judgment where they could be utilised elsewhere.
Yeah, I think just to add to that. Sorry, Chair, just briefly to add to that. I think part of the consideration at the moment is that we've got a kind of a mixture between a kind of centralised approach to property management and a dispersed model. So community assets, generally speaking, are effectively owned by the community's directorate within the authority. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but the ability to take a broader perspective in terms of how the asset might be used for wider community benefits and learn lessons from what's happening in one community location to another. I think at the moment that joined up approach isn't there. So the suggestion within the strategy of this kind of more joined up corporate landlord approach, I think, will help us better understand what is needed at a very local level and make sure the council is able to respond to that.
Thank you. Do you think you will face any challenges in achieving this objective?
I'm sure with any change we'll face challenges, and yeah, that's down to us officers, I suppose, to address those challenges at an early stage, really.
Are you okay with that, Nick?
Happy.
Yeah, okay. Next is question 2 is Councillor Alan Slade.
Hi, Nick. Could I say at the start that I think this is an excellent report and a very good strategy, actually. And my question is, how much potential revenue are we missing out on as a result of empty and/or under-occupied assets? Now, to add a bit of context to that, I know that very often, say, shops are let, which there's a question of affordability. So we perhaps could get more, but we offer them at a reduced rate, you know, to make sure that the shops are occupied rather than not. But I'm also mindful that, like Panicle Market, there's a lot of it's been underutilised. So, will this new system be able to give us an estimate of under occupancy or revenue that we are missing out on?
Thanks, Councillor Slade. I think we're quite fortunate as an authority in regards to, perhaps I hope that's the right phrase, in regards to our particularly commercial stock we're talking about now, that it's very well occupied. So the commercial estate itself is a circa 300 properties. And as we sit now, I think we've got 3 or 4 vacant, and it's been consistent with that for a number of years as well, even during the pandemic, where we all panicked that it was going to be that we didn't know what was going to happen to these smaller businesses. We didn't even, very few actually went through, and that vacancy rate has stayed consistent now for probably the last at least 6 or 7 years. It fluctuates a little bit, but it never, I can't remember the last time it went into double figures, for argument's sake. So in regards to sort of loss of revenue, I think we're actually, it's not a huge amount at the moment, and I think even the strategy, I don't think will affect that as such, but it's that better use of our stock again, I think, and the worry is that the condition of these properties, going back to the condition of it, as Gareth alluded to, some of these are 50, 60 years old and haven't had much of any investment during that time. So what we don't want to do is get to a stage that potentially some of these buildings could become unoccupiable because of their condition, which then could affect the revenue. So I think it's trying to get ahead of that curve a little bit with that. I think, does that answer the question there? Or sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm delighted to hear that we don't have much under occupation. That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we're quite, just put a bit more on that. I think we're quite fortunate that particularly from sort of New Inn north, if you like, the majority of the time, if you want to rent a property, whether it's a particularly industrial unit or a shop, it's generally the council that own most of those properties. Don't get me wrong, there's obviously a few sort of private occupiers or owners rather, but the majority is Torfaen owned.
Just the data led approach, I think, will also help us identify where we've got properties that are underperforming. So at the moment, the systems aren't manual, but there's certainly not, there's no centralised kind of database where all this information can be viewed, or reports run to look at the kind of performance management of the portfolio as such. So, and it's a relatively simple thing to do. You can buy these databases pretty much off the shelf. And then you obviously, you adapt the model to suit your own circumstances. So instances where we've got, you mentioned Pontypool indoor market, which is probably an unusual asset in some ways. But, understanding at any given moment in time how many units are occupied, how many are vacant, what that means in terms of income stream, and the ability to kind of monitor trends over time. I think we'll be in a much better place to do that once we've got this system up and running. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's certainly what we're building towards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you there. That's everybody happy on that one. Question number 3. I'm going to have to declare interest. For 8 years, I managed TRAC, Torfaen Resource and Activity Centre, and I was actually, as coordinator, responsible for 2 premises. One in Commercial Street and one in Trevethyn, where you're well known. So I've managed your properties on your behalf as well. Interesting. And I've also done the maintenance, which is what I'm going to ask the question for. Regards to the £33 million maintenance backlog, what is the anticipated time frame to catch up as a result of the new strategy? Who wants that one?
You're looking at me.
I am looking at you, yeah.
We're both looking at each other. No, it's a really good question. So, in simple terms, the maintenance backlog is, in reality, is probably bigger than that. It's just we don't have. We've got reasonably good information on the most important assets, in the sense that we've got information through the work that the team does directly. But we are, as you will have picked up in the strategy, we're looking to run a programme of building condition surveys. So I suspect once that programme has been concluded, the maintenance bill will have got bigger. And that's, as Dan has mentioned, really, properties are getting older. So unless we invest heavily in the portfolio the next couple of years, we're going to keep chasing a moving target. The council, in July last year, allocated an additional 5.7 million, I think it was, into the capital programme for property maintenance, which is a massive help. And that's in addition to the nearly kind of £500,000 worth of capital funding that's allocated through council core coffers annually anyway, and there's close to £1 million worth of kind of reactive maintenance budget. So I can't give you a precise calculation, but you can probably see from the conversation we've had so far that 33 million is probably a light figure, and we need to be investing probably north of 5 million a year to be able to catch the target, which is why I think the approach moving forward is probably to be taking some informed but harsh decisions about which assets we can reasonably hang on to and which ones we allow others to take forward, so we can consolidate the portfolio and make sure that that's properly maintained. And by definition, the maintenance bill then will come down on the assets that we remain within the portfolio.
I was going to ask the question because I did when we looked at the questions. Some of this is a bit more nuanced as well, isn't it? Because you look at buildings, that's straightforward enough. Start looking at community assets, Pontypool Market, as Alan was saying earlier, and looking at green spaces, or you get into all sorts of things for green spaces. If you want to include the boating lake, the parks, and all the rest of it, you've got into community deals there, haven't you, really, where anything can be ascertained there. I mean, thinking about it, the other one I should declare is a member of Park Group. So Park Groups is whatever we want to raise to put into our local park. So that one begins to get a bit of an open chalice, poison chalice, or could do. Maintenance of toilets being a favourite one. And park building. So I wonder whether your approach, I can see where you're going with that. Could you comment on that, please, if you would?
So yeah, so I think in regards to that, I think the one element we could do is we can work with these community groups, and it's worked successfully in a couple of scenarios already where we can grant licenses or leases or agreements to these community groups so they can access funds and grants and able to sort of utilise these green spaces better. And I think we will continue to do that as well going forward. If we can work more closely with them, then even better as well.
You're doing the same thing with community hubs, aren't you? Community halls and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Although you have done some planned maintenance on them as well, so there's a bit of a difference there. I'm thinking of various halls that we've got.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Just to add, I mean that goes to the heart of the categorisation or that kind of asset segmentation approach, which means you develop different strategies for different types of asset class. And the reality is that it isn't only the council's responsibility to invest in land and property. If others are using the property, then there needs to be a kind of a shared approach to that. So I think if we can drill down, rather than trying to manage the whole portfolio as one with limited resources, it gives us the ability to look at each asset class and develop an appropriate approach to each.
The other question I had is, you're not including the canal in this, are you?
No, that's not one of the assets on the list.
No, I wondered about that. I only asked the question because I'm on the Canal Strategy Group, and I was thinking if you put that in there, that would put this in astronomical right off the scale, wouldn't it? So we wondered about things like that. That's nothing to do with this. Thank you for that. Right, next question. A question for Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Chair. And, I'd echo the comments of Councillor Slade. I think it's a good report and very positive way forward. And I've partly answered some of this, which was the report and draft strategy states some assets within the portfolio are operating but beyond their design life, and there are challenges around energy standards. You've indicated how you think the strategy will address this, but how would you expect to be able to act on survey results? Will this be a sort of form of prioritisation in terms of your forward programme? Sorry, I should say this is at 410 in the report, so just for reference of where we are.
Sorry, we just lost you off the screen at the moment.
Sorry, did you hear me okay? Or?
Yeah, just to let everybody on Teams know, we're just trying to resolve a technical issue at the moment. We can hear you, but the TVs in the chamber have gone black, so we're just trying to resolve that a sec.
Slight technical hitch.
Would you mind just repeating the question? Sorry, Councillor Williams, it was.
Yes, certainly. The report and the draft strategy state that some assets in the portfolio are operating beyond their design life, which has been touched on earlier, and there are challenges also around energy standards, particularly. How, with this reference at 410 to the MEES, minimum energy efficiency standards. So, I think you've started to indicate how the strategy will address this, but how are you planning to use that to act on the survey results and prioritise spending?
Councillor Williams, I don't know if you can see us or not, but yeah.
I can see you, Dan.
Oh,
yeah,
can you? Okay.
We see you well, Dan.
So I think it's really the important data for us out of this is these condition surveys that we're gonna commission, because I think there is still a lot of unknowns with these buildings, and in regards to hitting the MEES that we need to, as you alluded to, I think we're not going to really know until we start getting these condition reports back and start drilling down, and then once we start getting them back, we can start trying to put the works into an order of priorities then as well. Obviously, everybody's going to sort of shout quicker and say my property is more of a priority than yours, but I think once we've got that core data, which we don't have access to at the minute, we then as officers then can start itemising where those priorities are, and start trying to almost pick them off them.
You okay with it, David?
Yeah, I think that was implied, and it was really just to sort of get clarity that this is your forward approach. Thank you for that.
Okay, if you were okay there, David. Councillor Carl Gordon, number 5. Have we got Carl?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bear with me, Stu. We're all right to continue with all.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we're going to pause it a second, Stu.
Just going to check. We're struggling to resolve the issue we've got here. So just to clear it up. So obviously, so everybody at home, you can see and hear us. I take it.
Totally well.
Okay. From our perspective, we can hear all of you, but we can't see anything. Niall's tried to resolve it, but basically we can either carry on as we are, or we can just have a break for a couple of minutes while we reboot the whole system. So basically, how does everybody feel? Are you happy to carry on as we are? Or?
We can hear you fine and see you fine. It's whether you're comfortable with that.
Can I just ask, is the webcast visible, or is it just in the chamber the problem's occurring?
Yeah, the webcast is performing fine. So from a viewer's perspective, they can see and hear everybody.
So shall we carry on?
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
So, Councillor Carl Gordon again?
Thank you, Chair. And can I add my comments, associate myself with the comments commending the report, because it is, it's excellent. I suppose I should declare a sort of partial conflict of interest, if you like. I'm a trustee of the Village Hall, where within my ward, so there's a sliver of Venn diagram which cuts across this, so apologies for having mentioned that. Really, I didn't think it was humorous, Stuart, but not to worry. 411 of the report, considerations may, for example, include disposal of some of the poorest condition performing or poorest performing investment assets, to allow capital receipts to acquire and build new, better performing assets. So the question is, do we have an estimate of how many assets fall into the poorest condition or poorest performing assets? Because members have some fears in terms of if we do dispose of properties at kind of the lower end of our spectrum, that there could be some impact on some of the groups and organisations that use those premises. Currently, I'm thinking about sort of community groups and all the rest of it, perhaps food share kind of premises and all the rest of it. So, just an estimate on what that looks like currently. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think the honest answer is that we haven't got that data at the moment. I think that's really going to, just echoing my comments from before, really, I think these condition surveys are really going to draw out. I think a lot of the survey work that we've got at the moment has been is limited. It's a lot of it has been desktop or relying on historical information, so I can't really give you an inkling of those sort of figures yet until we get that data.
I think in terms of community facilities like village halls, I think it's a different type of consideration. That's more about understanding how many of those types of assets we've got, what they're being used for, how productively they're being used, whether there are alternatives. I suspect in most instances there won't be. The reference in 411 to poor performing assets is more related to the commercial portfolio. So it's more about making sure, because the commercial portfolio is the is where the bulk of income generation comes from. That's the 1.8 million that is often talked about. Largely comes from the commercial portfolios. It's more a case of assessing which assets, going back to Councillor Slade's question earlier on, where we've got vacancies, do we try and improve the buildings to refurb them, or do we then think about offloading some of them? So, and I do think at some point in the relatively near future, the council will have to make some judgments about which properties it's going to hold. It isn't sustainable to carry on holding the scale of portfolio that we've got with the maintenance budget that we've got, and expect to continue for those assets to continue generating income at the level that they have been, and also probably more importantly, or certainly more importantly, remain safe and secure for occupants to use. So.
Thanks for those answers. I think the concerns are raised. My particular concerns are we'll sort of jettison some of the sort of lower performing assets and sort of acquire new builds, better perform. Well, that's great to an extent, because we do need to get sort of bang for our buck. But the question is more around a sort of reminder, if you like, not to lose kind of the sort of philanthropic element of the property portfolio as well, because community groups and building resilience within communities is important, and that might be taking place in some assets which, I've got a couple of tiles missing on the roof, and perhaps we don't want to lose sight of that going forward. But thank you for your answer.
Councillor Alan Slade.
Sorry, can I just follow
go on.
A little bit from there? And I think that's, just sort of echoing those comments really, because I think that, and it's like the commercial estate as well. I think we've got to remember that there's a lot of our commercial estate is smaller buildings, and these small local businesses, these SMEs, rely on having access to those smaller buildings as well. So we've got to remember that as well to ensure we've got that going forward as well.
Thank you for that, Dan. Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if it's a question or just an observation. I think members need a reassurance, really, that you know, before a building, a property is disposed of, you know, is that ward members are involved in the decision, because often ward members are aware of, you know, aware of things that perhaps officers aren't, being, you know, close to the ground as we are. So it just, you know, as long as we you can reassure us, I think, as ward members, that we will be consulted on any disposals or closures, then I, for one, would be happy, to be honest.
Right. Anybody else on this subject? Sorry, go on, John.
If I can answer this one, yeah, absolutely. It's important ward members have the best local knowledge, don't they? Particularly when it comes to community venues. I think that's, you know, we're here today to improve and develop our draft strategy. I think it's something that we can add into the strategy. So thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Slade.
I would also like to add to this as well, because I think a lot of those of us who have actually run community venues in the past have suffered from this, you know, but also the voluntary sector and community sector has actually taken the slack up on buildings that not been what's the word, commercial, but at the same time have kept local communities going, certainly north of Pontypool. So it's important that they remain there where they're essential for good, sound voluntary and community sector reasons. It does seem that in this strategy, I again praise it up, that there are reasons that they're there. So that those reasons should stay there. And thank you for that, Joe.
Just not to prolong the conversation unnecessarily, but just to add, the approach, the segmentation approach, and I can hear myself reverberating around the room. Yeah, the segmentation approach and the work that will be done through the Directorate Asset Management Plans will capture the needs to consult. So the approach to disposals won't be ad hoc, it'll be done in a strategic way. So any community assets that sit within service areas, you know, will be looked at properly, and appropriate consultation will take place both with users and with local members. So you can be assured that that'll be the case, Councillor Slade.
Right, thank you for that answer. Right, next question was Councillor Yowell, but I'll give it to ask Councillor Clarkson to ask that one, if you would, please, Linda. Have you got sight of that question?
I have, Chair. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, so question 6 is regarding 4.12 of the report, and the question is, with regards to exploring opportunities around assessing external grant and or investment funding, how will this be coordinated? Will this be managed by a specific officer or team?
That's a good point.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that draws back to the category class, these 7 new classifications. I think we'll identify within there which assets we could potentially look to access grant funding through. A lot of that will be through the occupier, whether that's community groups, business tenants or whoever. I think it's that engagement with them and those communications with them to try and draw down exactly what they want and what's available out there as well. So obviously there's lots of grants out there available that I think we're not aware of, and only tenants become aware of them. So I think it's that engagement with the occupiers.
It's a really good observation, though, Councillor Haynes, because who's it? Sorry.
Clarkson.
Oh, sorry, I can't see. So, Councillor Clarkson, apologies. At the moment, the approach to accessing external grants would be ad hoc between different services, different parts of directorates. So to some extent, it depends where we go on the corporate landlord model. At the moment, within the asset management team, we wouldn't have that area of specialist expertise, but as part of a wider approach moving forward to investment and reinvestment in the portfolio, it may well be that is at least part of someone's role within that centralised team.
Are you right with that, Linda?
Yeah, if I could just come back slightly, Chair, if that's okay. I know community resilience teams are working closely with community organisations at the moment, accessing this sort of funding, and it has been a huge success in sort of improving and maintaining some of the halls. So it would be something that would have value and benefit going forward. To reach out to other organisations. It really has been a huge success in my particular area where I've got knowledge. So yeah, that would be something that would be great to consider going forward.
Could I thank you. Go on.
I was just going to say, you know, we need to play to our strengths. So where things are working well, you know, the last thing we want to do with the new asset management strategy is interrupt kind of, you know, things that are working well for us. So yeah, we'll look again. It's a really useful conversation to be having. I think we need better coordination in terms of how we manage sourcing external funding, including investment funding for the portfolio. So we'll think that through and develop that theme further as we pull the strategy together.
Could I make an observation? The various community teams you've got within the council, the people like the community councils and TVA, of whom you've got people here who've got experience of that. There are a whole host of people who've got experience with this and got information. I think you've got a lot of supporters on this, where community and voluntary sector assets, support's needed. It's something you've got a lot of partnership working you could do there. Maybe that's a suggestion we'll put forward. All right. Does that help?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, we've all got. I think members have got a lot of experience with this when they need to get out of various holes. I'll put it that way, shall I? Right. Next one is 7. Is Councillor Elizabeth Haynes.
I think members have answered this question in part, but I'll ask it anyway in case officers have anything to add. Often other groups such as charities and voluntary groups can apply for financial support that councils are unable to. What support are we giving these organisations to find grants and apply for them in terms of TCBC assets?
Got that was explicit, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, so I know, I think in regards to what we have done with community groups in the past is given them or granted them leases and licences and dependent on what grants they're trying to access, dependent on the length of term we grant them as well. So I know for argument's sake we granted community groups 10-year leases, 15-year leases, 25-year leases in order for them to access these grants, and we carry on doing that, I think, going forward.
Do you want to come back at all, Liz? I think no, that's okay. Right, next question.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just come in there briefly.
Please do.
Yeah, it's regarding accessing funding for community organisations. Torfaen Borough Council owns buildings that are leased. It depends on the type of lease that people have actually got as to how they can access funding. If it's more of a management type lease, it would be a huge problem because places such as lottery funding and even Welsh Government grants don't accept that. There has to be some sort of more structured agreement. So is that something that can be looked at and reviewed for some of the halls that are in this position and community buildings that are in this position currently? Some halls have no problem at all. The lease that they hold is very clear and precise, and it's doesn't interfere with their applications for grant funding at all. But I do know a couple where it is a problem.
Yes, absolutely. I think I'm sure we can look at that. We can chat to our colleagues in legal as well and see what agreements we can come up with them. But no, absolutely. If there's any issues like that, please just come to myself and we can look to try and facilitate that.
Yep, you're on.
Thanks.
Councillor David Williams.
Yeah, just to echo the point in many respects, which I think I heard the officers say, which was actually about providing support to organisations, and it is just again to highlight the fact of an element of signposting too, such as TVA. I should declare an interest, being a trustee of TVA.
Say that, David.
But I'm just saying that I think it's quite helpful to actually include that within the body of the asset strategy, so that's a consideration that is part of the portfolio, if you like, of support to potential lessees.
Right, any more on this? I would say that some of us have experienced negative stuff in the past, which I don't think this strategy does, where we've had grants and leases combined together and put us in a situation where we've had to give up the lease. So there has been bad experience in the past, but I'm sure you're well onto that now. It does have it is problematical if the lease is reliant on a grant and other grants are reliant on it. I think Linda pointed that one up. So it has to be sympathetic, the lease. I mean, in effect, leases like this are a form of grant aid when you look at them. Bearing in mind also charitable organisations also get relief on their business rates as well. So there's a lot tied up in this as well. Respond on that.
I think that the move increasingly towards corporate landlord will help as well, because at the moment those conversations would be taking place with individual services.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think, wherever we can be, and I'm sure, in my experience, we are as flexible as we can be to try and accommodate the needs of occupiers, including community organisations who are looking to access grants. So, yeah, that's the principle of the model moving forward is flexibility and cooperation, not trying to cause unforeseen problems, obviously.
I commend this report as well, because I think you obviously more knowledge and a consistent way of doing things is important. Right, next one on this, number 8, is Councillor Nicola, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is about 4.15. Would you be able to provide some examples of key pieces of long-term work that's been undertaken to reinvigorate green spaces and community and heritage assets?
You got me thinking there. I think the one that we're working with, and I hope I've got this right now, is Pontywenny Park. We're working with the group down there. It's one of my team have been working with the park to, I believe, sort of reopen the public toilets down. I think I'm right.
Pontywenny, that is.
Pontywenny Park, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
So working with community groups in order to sort of regenerate that area that I understand has been successful. That's one that springs out. Yeah.
I can't think of any examples, Councillor Hall, but I think, just again, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, at the moment, matters relating to green space would be being dealt with through different service areas. So, in terms of long-term planning moving forward, once we've categorised the assets, at the moment, I'll be honest, across the authority, we probably don't know everything that we own. So, getting the basics right, and then I think we can start looking at what are the green spaces, what are our policies in relation to green spaces, who's going to be responsible for it, and then when we need to do short, medium and long-term pieces of work, then we can work out the best strategy for doing that. Does that answer your question?
So if I read that question from myself as to answer that question, we look at Pontypool Park that's had the tennis courts that's regenerated. That's a part of, obviously, the assets we have. And luckily in Blenavon recently, we've just had the tennis courts done that's regenerated that area. And currently we've got a project that's nearly finished regarding the park that's had some disabled access and put some better surfaces down to regenerate that area within the asset, and that's coming from Welsh Government funding. Thank you.
Councillor David Williams.
Yeah, and I would also point out the work that's been done to revive the play area and make it more inclusive at the Boating Lake play area, for example, which I know Councillor Slade and myself have both been positive in seeing that go forward. So,
thank you for that, David. Councillor Linda Clarkson.
Yes, if I may, if I could slide in a question here about the heritage assets. I'd have to declare an interest, having been involved in British Liaison Group and Friends of groups in the past, and in a personal capacity. But yeah, listed buildings would seem to be something. It is mentioned in 4.7 of the report, and it would come it is mentioned in the strategy. I would have thought around objective 11, the council as custodians, but it would come into this sort of area. And unlisted buildings seem to be a strange and specific area in their own right, because the needs are so varied. There's not a huge amount of them that are owned by the council, but they're in a very varying state of repair and condition. So I'm just wondering how that's sort of going to be managed going forward. Is that going to be looked at, or would there be a benefit from sort of categorising specifically listed buildings in a little category almost of its own, to get sort of a quite quick update report on condition? Some of them may be in need of stabilising, others may be in need of sort of more planned long-term maintenance. So it's just a specific area around listed buildings that came to mind there.
Thank you very much, Linda. Reply on that, Thor?
Can I just briefly? I think you're right. The categorisation process will be really helpful because, again, at the moment, listed buildings are dispersed around the county borough. They'll be being dealt with by different people in different service areas. And actually, as you rightly say, listed buildings, by definition, need special treatment.
Yeah.
Cool.
Chair, can I just come in on this one? We've obviously got the, if we look at the heritage buildings, we've obviously got the Workman's Hall, that this year is it celebrates its 130th year of preservation. And obviously that's one massive asset to Torrine County Council, but it's also had lots of funding through organisations that a few of us around the chair have been involved in. So it's very important that we kind of keep that asset, looking forward to it, and the preservation of all those assets, and especially the Workman's Hall.
Thank you, Nick. We lost you.
I'm here, thank you. It's your question.
Right, no, thanks.
I haven't had an answer to my question, sorry.
No, you have. Linda hasn't had a question. Dave Williams wants to go, and I want to say something as well.
No, okay.
No, I was simply going to echo what my colleague said, Councillor Clarkson. I think a register of listed buildings and those where a body such as CADU has to be involved will be very helpful for the council as a whole in terms of this overall asset management strategy. And I think because there are particular conditions that can often apply, you know, I've been, as you'll be aware, Dan, I've been very positive about the work that was done at Llanrabban Mill recently, and moving forward with Llanrabban Manor Farm. So I think there is a point here which is actually about making sure that we're very clear about what those heritage assets are and what conditions might apply to them.
Right. Linda, very quickly, I'm mindful of the fact we've got 23 questions here.
It's just I haven't really had an answer to the question that I asked. It's about how we're going to, priority really. There is a varying, we mentioned the Blenheim Workman's Hall is in very good condition, is being used. We've got listed buildings which are in a state which they need some stabilising at the moment. So is how are we going to get those assessed? And does that custodian sort of responsibility met as soon as possible and in a priority order?
I think we had an answer about categorisation, didn't we? Do officers want to answer that quickly, please?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we in terms of the categorisation class, is that easy for me to say, but I think in regards to that, I think one of the this new cloud data system we've mentioned in the report as well. Excuse me. one of the elements that we actually had a meeting about last week with them is how we can classify all of our listed buildings in there. Because again, I think it goes back to our data. I think our data at the moment is stored in various places throughout the council probably, and this new software will hopefully collate it all in one place with the condition surveys that we're going to commission as well. I think it gives a much better understanding of the condition of those assets, the money that needs spent on them, and also where they all are as well. I think I don't know at the moment whether we've got one central database of all the listed buildings. But going
yeah,
through,
there is a list. There is a register of listed buildings in Torvine.
It's under forward planning. They have it. And you also got on the website. Right. Thank you very much for that. That's rather important. Something we will raise when we make observations. The other thing I want to bring up very quickly, Dan, you mentioned toilets in Pontnewydd Park. Back in 2017, we had a cross-cutting meeting on toilet strategy, and the parks are actually one of the places where the toilet strategy can be enacted outside of the town centres. Pontnewydd being a good example, and it's you've got some of the assets that are rather important to local communities with regard to toilets. I don't intend to say anything more than that, other than maybe a possible recommendation. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. It's the toilet strategy is a favourite one. I know we have a smile about it, but all our local communities, it's actually quite a problematical thing that a lot of people have. Bearing in mind, it also fits in with the canal strategy as well. I'm sure Joe will be pleased to hear that one. It relates to it, and all the parks should have fully functioning toilets where possible. So I will bring that one in. I'm not intending to go any more about that. Right, where are we? Question 11 is me. No, it's not. Yeah, sorry. I'm getting confused here. Yes, it is 9, sorry. With regards to green spaces, are the same standards applied to those assets managed directly by TCBC compared to those managed by on our behalf? Do the same opportunities exist for both? Are you okay with that?
Missed the first part of the question, sorry, Chair. Can you just repeat the first part?
With regards to green spaces, are the same standards applied to those assets managed directly by TCBC compared to those managed on our behalf, and do the same opportunities exist for both?
So the honest answer is I don't know at the moment, because green spaces are managed within, not within the property or asset management area, but what we will do moving forward is we will, as you well, know from the categorisation process, is understand what green spaces we've got, and then we'll be looking at the policies that are applied to the management of those green spaces. So at the moment, I mean, I can't give you an answer because I don't know whether there's a difference between the way council assets are managed compared to those that are kind of managed on the council's behalf by others. But what I'm saying is we'll have a better understanding and be in a better position to make judgments around that moving forward if we adopt this new strategy.
So we're back to categorisation again. Thank you very much for that. Right. Question number 10, Councillor Clarkson again. Councillor Clarkson again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this has sort of been touched on, but I will ask it again specifically, just for clarity for the panel and for anyone watching. Will there be a designated responsible officer for managing each asset class or category?
Almost certainly not. We don't have the resource to do that. So unless we move almost entirely into corporate landlord, which would be a quantum leap from where we are at the moment, that level of resource wouldn't exist within the council. So I imagine that there will be officers who are responsible for more than one asset category. To some extent, the focus is probably more on the directorate plans than it is on the asset categories, because the asset categorisation is more about segmenting the 1,000 assets into batches that can then be looked at, you know, as kind of almost kind of special cases. But those will sit they'll be looked at. Those all 7 categories will sit within the Directorate Asset Management plans. So for every directorate, we'll be looking at any operational premises, education premises, that might be a bit of an odd one, green spaces, community and heritage, and there might be different approaches applied within each directorate to those different categories. But I don't envisage that we'll have individual officers leading on asset categories. I'd love that to be the case, but we just don't have the resources to do that, I'm afraid.
Can I just come back on that?
Please
again,
do.
Chair, please. Maybe designated officers, they may have more than one sort of area category, but there would be a designated officer that there would be a clear line of communication with or responsibility over.
I think by definition within the asset, I mean, this is obviously an evolving process, so it's useful to be having the conversation now. Within the asset management team, there will need to be a clear delineation of responsibilities around how we both develop and implement the initiatives within the different directorate plans. So by definition, there will be officers that are responsible, and they will be identifiable around those areas of responsibility. What I don't know is what that looks like at the moment and who might be responsible for it.
No, that's great. That's a good answer. Thank you very much.
I think councillors like the idea of a group or officers responsible they can go to. I think that's something that might come up. Right, everybody happy with that one? Good. Question number 11, Councillor David Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I think, to be fair, this has actually already been covered, which was about local members having a role in the disposal of assets. If I could just expand it slightly, I would also ask that there's also the consideration if there's a change of lease or something like that. I cite as the example the very positive engagement that was held in relation to the leasehold of the Llanrafan Golf Course, where you'll be familiar with the circumstances, Dan, but that was, I think, a very good example of local views being used to inform a different way forward and a reissue of the lease. So I'd like just to make that point that that engagement is both positive, but perhaps also be a fundamental part of the strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, it was. I think we've got 2 really good examples down there in the golf course and the manor. I think in regards to liaising with yourself, and we've got a really good outcome down there at the moment. So we'll certainly carry on working forward like that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right with that answer, David? Thank you. Right. Next question is. Oh God. Right. That was what question? What number was that, David?
With number 11, I have number 12 as well. So
You have
it's a very
number
short
12.
question.
Yeah, please do.
We appreciate that the new cloud-based SIS database should pay for itself over its lifetime, but we're just trying to understand what potential cost there may be over that 10-year licence period. And was the decision to commit to a 10-year period the result of a best value exercise, or was it more of an operational decision?
Yeah, so I think that the 10-year was more sort of in our minds really, and that's not set in stone at the moment, but sort of to cover the next 2 strategies really was our mind, our sort of thought process behind that. I've had discussions with our current provider that give us some of the support, and they've indicated it's in the region of about an extra £3,000 a year going forward. So they sell it to us in regards to like modules almost. They explained it to us last week. So in regards to what we've asked for in regards to this extra data, these extra categories, they give us an inclination it's going to be circa £3,000 a year extra.
Thank you there.
Thank you.
Anybody back on that one? Right, next question is Councillor, your question. So, Councillor Elizabeth Haynes, would you like to do question number 13?
Yeah. How long do you anticipate it will take to get all assets onto the new database? And how will the order for doing this be prioritised?
The honest answer is I don't know yet. I think until we've just had the initial, as I said, the initial conversations with the potential provider, and I think, yeah, the honest answer is I don't know yet. Until we start getting some of these condition surveys back, that will form the basis of a lot of the data that goes onto the system. How those are moved across on there, I think it's just going to be a sort of work in progress for the time being.
Can I just add, in terms of the condition surveys, that would be a commission to probably a single firm of specialist building surveyors, and the idea would be that the data that's gathered, the detailed data for each asset, would be transported straight into the cloud-based system. So there wouldn't be any kind of manual uploading or inputting from a council perspective. So we're going to try and kind of streamline the process as far as is possible. There is an element of manual inputting that will be required, because at the moment our database of assets is held on spreadsheets that would need to be transferred across into the new system. But it'll be a priority. I mean, I think what we're looking at here is trying to do as much as we can within the first year. You know, and certainly that would be a priority within the first year's activity.
That makes perfect sense. Chair, I've had a phone call. I've got a bit of an emergency situation I have to deal with, so I'm going to have to leave. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. That's great. Thank you. Right. Next question going forward. 14, Councillor Nick Paula.
Thank you, Chair.
Got that, Nick? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. 4.17. With regard to the interior of assets, what level of checking does TBC undertake in terms of any repairs and maintenance completed by the tenants?
That's very much at the moment a sort of case-by-case basis, and I think it's an assessment made by the individual officers. Obviously, there's the landlord's consent process that all tenants should be following, and at the moment, obviously, it's a bit of a judgment call in regards to if it's substantial works. Officers will go out, inspect, whether that's the start, during the process, or at the end. If, to be honest with you, it's just a small job, painting something very minor, then we wouldn't go out and check it.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Nick?
Certainly. Thank you.
I was going to ask, with regard to your database, because it's similar to what housing associations do. Do you keep that on the same database as you would keep your property database? Do you have a recall system on it?
That's the idea, is to try and get one central database for everything. At present, like you said, it is saved in a couple of different locations. The idea is to get one central database for us to use.
The next question, it's a little bit like the tree survey. Do you have an urgent one of things that need doing a la priority, ones that are not so priority, and ones then that you've got an agreement like you would with the community assets where they do them themselves?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. Sorry, I must admit. Sorry. If you could repeat
maintenance scheduling system. Obviously, you've got commercials that probably you have an arrangement where you do it for them, and ones where you've got a service level, some sort of level agreement where community assets have to do it themselves. I wonder how subtle this system is, and where stuff is urgently needed doing because it hasn't been done for years, that sort of thing. I'm thinking of community assets where we suddenly found someone turned up and said, yeah, we need to put glass in all this. I just don't know how this system works in terms of priorities, etc.
If I can sort of answer that a little bit, is that this is why we absolutely need to have this asset management strategy, isn't it? Because I think at the moment our maintenance schedule is rather reactive rather than proactive, and obviously being reactive can be more costly and isn't the best way to run our assets and properties, is it?
That's the bit I wanted to find out. Thank you, Joe. I'm kind of trying to find out the system we're buying, whether it could do that subtlety for us.
I don't think the database we're talking about would do that. I'm not sure whether we're talking about the same thing, but we obviously manage the property help desk. So if there's urgent reactive maintenance is dealt with, is prioritised when the calls come in. I think, as Councillor Gordon said, I think it's more about the planned maintenance where we apply a process of prioritisation based on effectively a kind of a risk rating in terms of where reactive, where planned maintenance features on the list of work that officers will tackle. But anything which is urgent would always be dealt with, either within the hour or within 3 hours.
Right, thank you. So okay, I'm not going to belay that point, but that's just one that I think we did discuss a bit. Right, next one down the.
That's me, Chair. I'll crack on if that's okay.
Yes, I was about to say you got there already. Number 15. Thanks, Carl.
I've got a list of them, Chair, so I know.
Oh, you've got a reactive list.
Yeah. Going on to the sort of corporate landlord piece, really, and ownership of all property assets. This is 4.19 of the report. All property aspects and the responsibility of management and maintenance since within a centralised function of the council. The question is, and if you don't know yet, just say don't know, because in the interest of getting out before it's here before it's dark. Question 15: asset management and directors may have different priorities about what they want most from an asset. How will these roles and responsibilities be determined? And importantly, who will mediate any disagreement between the relevant directorates and the corporate landlord?
Question then.
The corporate. Well, that's a very good question. Honest answer is, it's work in progress. The corporate landlord, whatever model we adopt, the only way it will work is if the corporate landlord's decision-making powers are, I'm going to say sacrosanct is not quite the right word, but you know what I mean. There needs to be a degree of centralised control. So yes, if there are disagreements, we need to make sure there are measures put in place to kind of mitigate and mediate. But we haven't got to that stage yet.
Nothing further, Chair. Thank you.
Right, David Williams.
Just a flag that I think that will be a comment that we'll make.
Thank you very much indeed, David. Right, question number 16, Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Chair. And it's again a very simple answer is going to be sufficient here. Will both landlord and tenant have access to the same information, such as surveys, maintenance plans, in order to action all required repairs and maintenance, should funding become available?
Yes, I think we'd share that with. I don't think there's any harm with sharing that with everybody. Available, so everybody knows the sort of condition of the buildings. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's really, really.
You did say that was a simple answer, David. Thank you. Right. Question 17, Councillor Linda Clarkson.
Yeah, we've just mentioned sort of leases. It's a bit off at a tangent, but it's regarding 4.26 of the report. What benchmarking is done in terms of setting commercial rates and rents, and how frequently are they reviewed?
So from our perspective, in regards to rates, it's best value. So it would be the market rate. So in regards to that, so whenever new leases are completed, they would be at market value. And then subsequently, any sort of rent reviews, lease renewals that will come up sort of within that vicinity, then that would be then again at market value. So does that answer the question there?
It sort of does. It's just, is there any flexibility within that, looking at specific circumstances, maybe underuse in the area, that type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we did, for argument's sake, have a parade of shops that were 50% vacant, or whatever it might be, or half, or more than half vacant, then yeah, we would certainly look at that. I think we're very fortunate, going back to my comments sort of earlier on, that our vacancy rates have been low, so we haven't had to come up against that. But certainly going forward, if that were to be an issue, I think we would consider that in order to make sure that the shops or whatever building it is occupied and open.
Yeah, just to clarify, just to give some context to that, I know Pontypool Market has been very successful. The flexibility of how stores are rented out on a daily, weekly and monthly basis has been very useful to allow businesses to dip in and try.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we've done with here, and that's good to hear, because I know with the commercial estate, in terms of the other investment portfolio now, we do try and be as flexible as possible with the lease terms there as well. So regularly now we're granting 1-year leases rather than the old sort of 3, 5, 7-year leases. We grant sort of short-term, more flexible leases now as well, which I think again is one of the reasons why we've been successful at keeping the occupancy rates high.
Okay, any more back on that one? You're happy, content, good. Question number 18, Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I've just made sure I wasn't on silent. Members understand the risks attached to the new strategy, but would you like to make any comments on the risks of not adopting the strategy?
Yeah.
What happens if we don't adopt the strategy?
Well, I think it goes back to it's almost going back to the rationale of why we should be adopting the corporate land law, which is a fundamental part of this strategy. I think it's are we using our properties to their best potential at the moment? And I think that's a question mark at the end of that in regards to until we delve deeper into these properties, get more data, get the condition, we don't have a full understanding of how our assets can be used. And I think that's the main risk to us at the moment, is that it'll be underused assets, which is effectively costing us money then as well.
Just as we again touched on earlier on, I think that there's a risk, certainly medium to longer term, which is about the resilience of the portfolio. So if we're talking about the commercial estate, if we don't adopt the strategy, if we don't change the way in which we're managing property, and look at areas where we can consolidate and generate some opportunities for reinvestment, the council will end up in a situation where the rental income from the portfolio is declining, and assets will become, they'll be in poorer and poorer repair, and then you have kind of health and safety issues. So I wouldn't attribute all of that to a new strategy, but the new strategy will put us in a better position to make sure that we're ahead of the game in terms of making sure that those things don't happen.
Yeah, thanks for your answer. I totally agree, and fully support the sort of purchase and implementation of the new system and the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anybody, any more? Right, Gareth, did you flash up something there? I only caught it very momentally.
Yeah, it was just to say basically that I believe questions 19 and 20 have already been answered, and I know a couple of members have given a thumbs up on that to indicate they agree with that. So I don't know if you want to skip on to question 21, Chair, on that basis.
Yeah, well, yes, please. Councillor Gordon again, 21.
Thanks. Yeah, we talked about occupancy rates, and it's good to hear that they are as high as they are tonight. Earlier in the meeting, Dan, we're grateful for that. I think one of the things we talked about in our sort of pre-meeting, places like Springboard and Pontypool Market, and particularly Springboard, I want to focus on a little bit. Sometimes the occupancy rate isn't as high as we would prefer. I think the nature of the building itself and the facility there is often a very transient occupancy there, because we're open to do start-ups there and they move on to maybe bigger premises to rent off the council or whatever. So there are other positives springing out of Springboard, if you like what I've done there.
Well done.
It's laugh a minute in this chamber, Chair.
No, you're very witty, sir.
Would you have any comments on that? Because there were some concerns raised about the occupancy rates at, I think it's Springboard. Springboard's been to an incarnation of this scrutiny committee before, So I'm personally fairly sanguine about it, but can you give some colour to, particularly around Springboard, please? It'd be useful.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, Councillor Gordon, the Springboard was considered by scrutiny about 18 months or so ago as part of the preparation for business case. You're right. I mean, Springboard it's not unique, but it's unusual in the sense that it's designed to be a transient innovation centre where businesses don't stay for extended periods of time. In reality, some of the tenants have been there for an extended period, but there are activities taking place. There's been quite a large kind of building transformation programme supported by an investment in an enhanced level of business support and marketing. So the levels of occupancy at Springboard have risen probably by about 10% since the last conversation we would have had. The aspiration is to get Springboard up to 75 or 80% occupancy by the end of the third year of the business plan. So we're moving in the right direction. But some really good occupants have moved in recently, including a medical company who's we've converted some of the floor space into lab space. So we've got a small business, innovators in medical devices and products that have taken lab space and office space there in the last 6 months. So it kind of, not to go back to overall ground, but I think that the approach needs to be bespoke within service areas to reflect service needs, and Springboard within that category needs special treatment, as does the indoor market, which serves a different purpose.
Yeah. You all right with that, Carl?
I'm grateful for the answer. I think Springboard plays an underestimated role in the wider strategy, because if we get businesses going in there and getting all the expertise from, like, Tovan Business Direct and all the rest, and all the support that's there, they can go on and rent to the bigger properties, create more investment, create more jobs in the borough. And I think Springboard's really key in that. So, you know, let's utilise that as best we can. But I'm grateful for the answer. Please, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to make an observation, if that's possible, because we can't see you.
Alan Slade was about to say something as well. You go first, Nick.
It's really welcome to hear since scrutiny that you've had an increase of people using Springboard. From my perspective, if you look out in the market right now, things are really tough. And if you're actually making an increase, that's a big hats off from me, and I'm sure many other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Councillor Alan Slade. I can't hear you, Alan. You're muted.
Schoolboy error there. Yeah, I was the one who raised concerns about it, because at some point we have to make sure that these places are sustainable.
Yeah.
The Springboard Centre is almost unique. I think there were several of them across South Wales at one point. I think there's only 2 left, one of which has got really strong ties with Swansea University, and basically has quite a high occupancy rate because of that. I've got no problems with it. I think it is a great concept, but it would be nice to have some sort of key performance indicators so that we can just keep an eye on the sustainability of both the Springboard Centre and the market.
Thank you, Alan. I'd like to add something. It's along. Would you like to reply to that first of all before I say something?
Just briefly, Chair. So in terms of Springboard, there were within the business case there are key performance indicators written into the business case, and those KPIs are built into the kind of the Directorate service plans and monitored on performance is monitored on a quarterly basis. So, which is why, one of the KPIs is about occupancy levels. So, I'm not sure that answers the question.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of this, so I'll have to do some deeper digging in the future.
Well, there you are, Alan. It's in your area. I'd like to say just briefly, it's a long time since I've been on a committee that's talking about Springboard. I was on the committee probably about 2 councils ago, but the question was asked then. I don't know whether it's still true. As I said, it's a long time since I've been down Springboard on a scrutiny committee. The move on and where do you move to being the important question. You've got Pontypool Market, small and medium sizes, particularly the small size businesses, where they move to. Cwmbran is popular, from what I gather, where they go, because at the time, back in the 2012 council, there was not a lot of stuff for them to move to if you were going to move out of Springboard in the Cwmbran area. Further up the valley, you've got the more opportunity you've got. Nick is right about up there. But I don't know if that's still the case. But we had a dearth of stuff down this end of the valley, but very small units that people might want to use. What is the case now, and how do we help? Because obviously the Springboard accommodation is on a different level to a lot of other stuff. Making assumptions, by the way.
Would it be helpful, Chair, if we provided an updated briefing, given the fact that Springboard has obviously been considered by the committee before, if we gave an updated kind of briefing on where we are with Springboard and the issue of grow-on space is a good one to raise. And
yeah,
we'll provide that if that's helpful, Chair.
That may be a recommendation for a seminar by the sound of it. Have you done one recently?
No, Chair, not. Are you talking about specifically on Springboard or?
Well, on a bag of things that you consider important, this would seem to be an opportunity we could possibly recommend. Joanne might want to comment on that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, members' choice. We can do a briefing note on Springboard and Pontypool Indoor Market, as they were of particular interest in being to, well, Pontypool Market hasn't been to it before, but Springboard has. Or we could do a seminar, your choice, that's you.
I don't know. It's just, I see what committee consider, but it's an incredibly interesting area, and there's a lot of opportunities there. And it's something that's mentioned by members. I think we'll put that to the session in a minute. But you obviously seem quite interested. You perked your ears up when we suggested it. I suggested it anyway. I don't know what members will say in a minute. But okay, anybody else on this one? No, we'll go on to the next question, which is 22, Councillor Clarkson. One more question to go, by the way.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of background information we're looking for, really, regarding research that's been done in this the area of the asset management team. So the question is, have we researched any other local authorities to gauge an idea of the required staffing numbers in the asset management team to deliver a hybrid corporate landlord approach? Are there any other local authorities actually doing this at the moment?
Yeah, so we haven't actually done the research as such. I think the one thing I would say is that we acknowledge it could be, it's going to be a challenge for us in asset management in regards to it. It is going into a little bit of the unknown. In regards to the resource it's going to need. I do sit on an ACES panel, which is other local authorities in South Wales. We haven't had that for a little while, and I think that's due in the next few months or so. And that's certainly a really good point that I can raise in that and have those discussions to see the sort of resource implications it could have. I'm not sure exactly which authorities have adopted it. We did look at various strategies as we are writing ours of other neighbouring authorities as well, and I think that's a really good point of that we could take to go forward to have a chat with these other authorities.
I think in terms of resource, in terms of the strategy, the way the strategy has been drafted, we have researched a range of different kind of corporate approaches to property management. A lot of local authorities, not just in Wales but across the UK, have moved towards a corporate landlord model. They tend to be larger authorities. We've got the economies of scale, and for example, Monmouthshire and Blaenau Gwent topically do operate kind of versions of a corporate landlord model. So yes, there's some learning to be done, and clearly the level of resource that we currently hold within asset management wouldn't be sufficient to manage the scale of responsibility that might go with a move towards a corporate landlord model.
Are you okay with that, Linda? Good.
Yeah, I got sticky button again. Sorry. Yeah, it raises some questions, but yeah, it answered the question.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So the end question goes 23 goes to Councillor Nick Horler. There you are, Nick. You can have the end.
So, this is the last question. It's about page 73, and it's talking about challenges and risks. With regard to KPIs, are you confident that there are no gaps and they are in line with other strategies in terms of frequency of assessments, and who does it?
So there may be some gaps. As I mentioned at the start of the discussion, the draft strategy is very much kind of work in progress. So that list has been refined a little bit since it was shared with the committee, including the frequency through which reporting will take place. I'm keen that most of the reporting takes place through service planning, because we've also got systems and processes that naturally capture performance in that way. Happy to account in different ways, but I think most of the KPIs, key performance indicators that we could think of, are listed on the schedule there. I think the one that isn't, that's been added since, is the number of premises occupied by SME businesses. But yeah, that's an evolving list. So, and obviously if the committee have got any recommendations or suggestions, we're glad to receive them. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's me finished.
Anybody else? It sounds like we've exhausted our questions, and what was I going to say? If we've exhausted all our questions, then I go to my summing up, which is, can I thank the executive members and officers for their time and contributions to the meeting. They can like to leave so members are able to formulate recommendations. And I would also like to add, this has been an excellent report, excellent session. Thank you very much for your answers, and thank you very much for your report, which was, as everybody else said, it's been a joy to read. Very good report indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Right, we're ready now. We're webcasting, Chair.
Right. May I remind members that's been asked the Scrutiny Committee to consider when coming up with their recommendations. Members of the Economy and Environmental Overall and Scrutiny Committee are invited to consider whether the 2025 to 2030 asset management strategy as drafted will allow the opportunities, demands and challenges associated with the Council's corporate policy portfolio to be effectively managed. Comment on whether the draft strategy sufficiently supports an environment within which local SME growth will be supported, and provide comments and recommendations for the executive members for economy, skills, regeneration on areas of improvement or development for the draft 2025-2030 asset management strategy. Did you all get that, by the way? It's a mouthful, but it's on the end of your first bit of the report. Right, over to you, Geraint. Are you getting that, Geraint?
Yeah, it's over to members, Chair, to
it's over to members.
Yeah, any specific recommendations?
Over to members' specific recommendations. Chamber, anybody there?
Councillor Clarkson and Williams' hands have gone up a sec.
Yeah, Councillor Clarkson.
Do you want to do those first, Chair, and then
I will do. Yes.
Chamber.
Okay.
Right, can I recommend early evaluation and condition monitoring of listed buildings in light of the unique responsibility that the council has towards the council-owned listed buildings, please?
You were going to get that one in quickly, weren't you, David?
I think just to add to that, it's sort of, the categorization of listing should be included in the asset management database register. That was just to add on to the bit that Linda was saying. The second part was basically to make a suggestion that that it is clear in the strategy that the disposals category will engage with local members prior to action being taken, something on those lines, because it was the point that you made, Alan, and I think we just need to make sure it's captured clearly.
Yeah, and with leases as well, I think is important, David. I think that was an excellent point you raised,
And the
not just with
leases
the
too.
sale of, but with release.
I think
Can't-
we were all keen on that one, weren't we? Yes.
You may have some better wording, Alan. Sorry. Yeah.
Alan?
No, I'm happy to go along. Yeah, I totally agree. I think the need for ward members, but is is definite. We need to be informed of certainly of disposals. I'd go a bit further. I mean, I've quite often been contacted by local businesses who want to rent premises, and maybe the rents have been set too high. So I've helped with a little bit of negotiation and got a more affordable rent for them, shall I say?
I always get informed of disposals. That's already sort of happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it has in my ward.
Right. Have you finished with that? You let the people in the chamber have a go? Is there
My
anybody?
hand is just waiting for whenever you call me in.
All right. We'll let the people in the chamber have a go. Whoever wants to go with that.
So to carry on from what you're talking about, sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
So to carry on to talking about local members knowing what's available, I think we all agree that we do get, like Councillor Zaid has just mentioned, we do get people coming up to us and asking what is available in the town. I get it. So would it be useful to increase that recommendation to inform members within their wards about availability and availability of properties that are in their ward members, so those ward members could actually, if they were actually asked, they would be able to give a clearer understanding. I think we have a clear understanding, but it's about confirming that clear understanding. Secondly, we're talking about the new database of what's going on. I think personally, I'm not sure if it's already included, but I think we should now start looking at the history of work that's been done within those buildings. So when they go back to another time, and I'll give you an experience of this. Many years ago, the property that I rented had a window frame that needed to be replaced, and it had a leak issue. But if that was actually recorded, they'd be able to go back to the database to find out what the issue was, how it was overcome, to see to project that into a repair. So my thought is that if they had a list of repairs that were done on the buildings, it would identify any other issues that were related to what was going on.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Linda.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend, in light of the fact that there's this uncertainty about the adequacy of the team and the members, I'd like to recommend that they go out and have this conversation with other local authorities to get some clarity on what's actually happening and what might be the staffing requirement. And I'd also like to firm up that promise that surveys and maintenance plans would be made available to all, including tenants and leaseholders.
Right. David?
Yeah, I was going to mention that second one, so agree with Linda. But the other point was, which was one that Linda made, which was, clarity in the strategy as to the appropriate contacts for each class, whether that's in asset management or
You did,
in...
but you all made that rather forcefully, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent recommendation, David. Thank you.
I want to put a couple in while I'm at it. One was it's not so much, was the recommendation to have move on from Springboard into appropriate property where we and have a seminar on that. I think Joe took that one. You okay with that, everybody? Then the other,
Stuart, I've got a comment on the Springboard thing. I'll wait till you finish if that's okay.
Yeah, that came up quite strongly, and I think Joe was okay with that. And the other one was the business about value added, the whole maintenance thing, especially where the voluntary sector and how we work with the voluntary sector, and something that they should be recording that as part of the maintenance. Obviously, with commercial, where they've got commercial properties, there should be part of the agreement with commercials. But where the voluntary sector is, the arrangements should reflect that. I'll leave it there. Carl, did you want to come in before David does?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I don't think there is a need for a seminar on Springboard, quite frankly. I can't see the point. It's been through scrutiny 18 months ago. We did it to death. The occupancy rates are rising. It's a vital asset for all the reasons we talked about in the body of the sort of meeting, about how it's a feeder into other assets. So I really don't think there's a need for a seminar on that. And Geraint's indicating, but I'm going to make another point, if I may.
Go on, make another point while you're at it.
While I've got the floor. I'm not desperately comforted by the answers they gave around the groups that rely on perhaps some of the underperforming assets, whatever. I think some of our community groups, etc., and things that support our community are probably housed in some of the less kind of well-appointed spaces, if you like. I would suggest as a recommendation we carry out some sort of impact assessment before we start divesting ourselves of the sort of space at the lower end of the spectrum, how that's going to impact various groups and so on. So some form of impact assessment around that would be something I'd favour. Thank you, Chair.
Carl, I wasn't suggesting that we did the Springboard. What I was suggesting was about the move on. That I just want to hear the answer to that. It wasn't Springboard per se, because we'd done that to death. I agree with you, but it was when a small business wants to move somewhere, the suggestions. So I don't think that's been done very well.
Would that be enough for a whole seminar, or would that be an updated report?
It would need an update. Linda, you're right. In this updated report,
it could be circulated to all members.
Yeah, maybe Carl's right. I don't particularly think Springboard's occupied, but we need that type of property. The last time I went anywhere near it, they said they didn't have it.
Chair, do you mind if I come in quickly a sec, please?
Yes, please.
If I captured it right, it was Springboard and Pontypool Market, and it was about the move on, and it was basically it was an update. They initially offered an update briefing note. So is that what members would prefer rather than a seminar?
But Darren, it's not just Pontypool Market, and it's not just Springboard. There's options around the place. Maybe we need to find out what those options are, or we need for them to develop those options, because you've got quite a few properties up around Linda that could be used, but we don't have it. We don't have it in Cwmbran. There's a dearth of that type of property. Always has been.
Sorry, Chair.
And that's where people want it.
Sorry, Chair. I'm getting very confused right now. Very confused. We talked about putting a seminar on for Springboard, and now we're not diversing away from it. In completely different areas. I thought the initial response from your Chair was that we wanted a seminar for Springboard. Thank you.
Well, Carl's put a bit of cold water on it, and I can agree with him on that if that's what he thinks. But the point is,
agree with Carl as well. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's about move on. It's the problem, not necessarily Springboard. Where do you go if you're a small business? That's the bit I was being important about. I still hold to that. Right.
I think that's a different topic area than we've got here, if I'm honest, because this is about the asset management. I think that's.
Yeah, but if you want to get out of Springboard, or you want to get out Pontypool Market and the assets we own, where do you go?
Well, I think that's a whole bit about sort of, which is a little bit in relation to a couple of the questions that were asked at the last full council meeting, which is actually support to small businesses and scope to be able to move on. So I think
I stand corrected, but I remember asking that question at, the businesses in Springboard, where the hell do they go? Newport? We don't want to lose them in our borough.
Dare I say, Chair, I think we're going slightly off topic,
No, I'm not off topic at all. I asked that question before. If the businesses are in Springboard and you want to move them on, which some of them have been there an awful long time, where do they go? It's innovation property up round the new hospital, but you've still got it's a question, and they didn't demur from it when I asked that question.
Chair, can I come in a minute? With regard to Springboard, the natural progression of businesses that go to Springboard to go on, Springboard, I believe, actually help those people progress moving on to other premises as they grow as a company. So that's a part of the package, I believe, that's already happening within Springboard. The progression is to spring from one company and expand to move on. And I believe that they have a business relationship where they actually help those businesses go further ahead. Thank you.
But there is not enough. Not enough in Cwmbran of small premises. They've got rid of some of them because the one round the corner, the unit round the corner from the Community Council has gone out, if I believe rightly. I'm only saying that. I'm not going to go any more about it. If you think I'm wrong about it, fair enough. I'll shut up about it. But happy to.
I was the one who was keen on seeing what's going on down the Springboard, so I'd be quite happy with a briefing note. If they just publish their KPIs on the
all right, we have a briefing note.
Just to back up, Alan, I would agree. A briefing note which actually does explain the process of support for Move On and give some examples of how that's been progressed would be sufficient, I think.
Okay, we'll go down that line. We discussed this out. So, Linda, next one.
Does David want to go next? I've just lost my train of thought during all of that debate. So, David, do you want to go next, please?
David.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really just, the thing picking up on question 15, which was about different priorities. I think they obviously weren't sure how to determine that, but I think the recommendation might be that clarification should be reached quite promptly as to what the roles and responsibilities are between directorates and the corporate landlord and how those will be resolved. Something on those lines.
Totally agree.
Brilliant. That's my question done.
Good.
That was pretty much what I was going to say, David.
Any more in the chamber?
Yes. My final question was regarding KPIs, and I think KPIs are an important part of the process of actually making sure that this project moves forward. So I would like to see a little bit more structure on the way that the KPIs are actually taken on board and what happens within those KPIs. And to be honest with you, we didn't actually get an answer on the question who actually oversees those KPIs to make sure that those KPIs are put into place to make it more beneficial for this project to move forward, or this agenda to move forward.
Thank you for that, Nick. David?
Just building on what Nick says, I think there's two bits there. One is that taking the opportunity in taking forward the benchmarking that was previously suggested to see whether other authorities are picking up on other KPIs. That's one part of it. And the second part is actually then confirmation that there's been engagement with the owning departments in terms of determining appropriate KPIs, because they're going to be different for green spaces, as for commercial premises, as for heritage. Does that make sense? It was just trying to add a bit to yours, Nick, really.
Did we get anywhere with the arbiter between who has the final say about who gets what? I didn't think that was answered very well.
That was just Councillor Williams's previous recommendation. Chair, I've captured that.
What did you say again? Can you repeat?
It's about getting clarification regarding the roles and responsibilities and the sort of mediation and resolution side of
the mediation.
Yeah, it needs to be included within the strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point there. Did we have anything about the other one, which Dave's got an interest in, with the voluntary community sector and that kind of support for them? Because I think Carl hammered that as well. What have you got on that one, Geraint?
Was that the one we said come back to members?
It was. I'm just trying to find on my list now. It was, Councillor Gordon raised about not being completely convinced with the answer about the impact on groups. So he suggested that the impact assessments. Do all members recall that? been raised?
I wonder whether that needs a little bit more in there, because what we've all sort of gone round that one is about the voluntary sector, voluntary and community centre. That's our service level agreements with the council and maintenance. There's a whole lot of stuff in that one.
Is that our involvement in leasing and resale as well? You know, members to be involved in that process, Geraint, just add that bit in.
I think that's rather important. Alan, Alan, what did you want to say on this?
It was just, I just wanted to point out that Dan did say, and I know this goes on, there are all Wales groups of officers that meet on a quite regular basis.
Yeah, good point.
When I was an officer, I was part of the Street Works Managers Group, for example. And I know there's a Welsh Association of Technical Officers. Yeah. So when it comes to benchmarking,
it was where you were going.
It may already be happening, and I think Dan did say that he would bring it up with his colleagues to see what others were doing, in respect with this. So
benchmark. You're highlighting benchmarking here, and where we get it from. That's a good point. David.
Thanks, Chair. I think again it was really just to pick up. There was a verbal response, obviously, to my question 16 about landlord and tenants having access to the information.
Yeah.
But I think we just need to put it as a recommendation that it is something that is put in the body of the strategy.
Thank you. It's your final say on all this. As Geraint keeps reminding me, if we don't have it put in now, we can't have it. Have we missed anything at all, Geraint?
I'm just checking my notes a sec from what I made during the meeting. Not from my perspective, Chair. No, everything that I captured down, you've raised in your roughly a dozen recommendations there, Chair.
Right. Can we just reiterate these so members got an idea of what we're recommending, or for whatever reason?
Yeah, I'll just quickly go through. There's obviously the one about the listed buildings, needing to be in there. There's in terms of disposals and potentially around leases and support to businesses as well, about local members and local, the views of local people being considered in that.
Little Britain clause, yeah.
Informing members within wards regarding the availability of properties so that they can assist in that process. The new database, to explore the possibility of it including a history of works in case there are any historical repetitive issues. Uncertainty regarding staffing, to go out and gain clarity from other local authorities around that, who are obviously themselves doing the hybrid corporate landlord. Include surveys and maintenance. Yeah, surveys and maintenance plans need to be available to all tenants and leaseholders, so that needs to be formalised in the strategy. Appropriate contacts need to be available for each of the class and categories. I think we agreed regarding Springboard and Pontypool Market that a briefing note regarding sort of like just an update on on recent times with those, including the process for move on.
Yeah, we got there in the end.
Work
collaboratively
with the voluntary sector. Around the assets, I've got arrangements to reflect that. I don't know if I've got that one clear enough. So I didn't know if anybody wanted to just expand on that one a sec.
David, views on that?
I think it was really. I think Carl's point, and I don't want to paraphrase for Carl here, is that it's not purely economic grounds, but it's actually looking at social and sustainability grounds for communities being an really important factor.
Okay,
thank you, David.
So I'll merge that in with, because the next one on my list then is the one around the impact on various groups. So I can perhaps wrap that around into one recommendation.
I mean, the other point I'd like to make is it's a form of, if we get a building, it's a form of grant in the sense if you get a cheap, but you also have to take responsibility. So it's an implication, an asset and a liability. So it's important they understand their roles and responsibilities, which I think TVA goes a long way to doing.
Oh, okay, Chair.
So there's quite a lot in that one.
Yeah, then there was the one that I came back to a few moments ago, obviously clarifications needed within the strategy regarding the roles and responsibilities between the corporate landlord and the directorates, and and what the process will be for any mediation.
Yeah.
And lastly, it was around the KPIs. Need a bit more structure around that, and they could benchmark via other LAs. And what have I written there?
Alan's point
And yeah, and need confirmation. Yeah. Need confirmation with the directorate, so that the KPIs are agreed between both the corporate landlord and the directorates themselves. Because obviously there'll be different directorates will have different priorities. That's the word. Yeah. That's everything I've got down, members.
Right, and can we put that thing on the end about an excellent report? Compliment them. I think we need to. Got Alan smiling on this one, so we have to have that in there. I think it's important that they complimented on the stat as a report to look at. That's actually quite useful for other people.
Yeah, I think that's everything from the Chamber, Chair. So it's over to you to close the meeting if everyone's finished.
Right. Right.
David standard up.
Sorry, the only bit I wasn't sure if we'd captured.
Go on, David. I thought you might find something.
No, it's simply the point about the question that Councillor Haynes raised, which was actually about the sort of being clear in strategy that support is given to signposting people to where appropriate grant funds or organisations that can assist with grant funds. Yeah. It was, I think it was the focus of a couple of questions. I think there was an acknowledgement that should be something that's done. But again, it's one of those things it's quite useful perhaps to put in writing.
But would the asset management team do that, or would it be the service area?
Good point, Alan. I think it's probably more to the service area, not the asset management team.
Distinctly,
but, it's just sort of, it may be clear, it might be useful just to put a line in there to ask who would do it.
Clearly identify who would carry out that function. Yeah.
There's a partnership arrangement there, isn't there?
Possibly.
There's a lot of people. I mean, we come down to maintenance issues. I mean, we like the park groups, the green space groups. There's a lot of creativity going on there.
That sort of brings me back to the point that I made about some of the leases that particularly our community halls have got. Some leases are quite straightforward. Some you are responsible for the interior of the building. Torvine's responsible for the exterior. Yeah. But we've got a couple that have got more of a management lease, a management agreement, rather than a lease, which excludes them from a whole raft of grant applications. I refer those in individually, but did anyone want to think we need to put that in as a recommendation that we identify and renegotiate these?
I think very distinctly.
I don't know, because sometimes different groups have got different requirements, haven't they? I mean, some groups are quite happy to have management.
That's where the renegotiation comes in, isn't it? It's a discussion with.
But it's also sports groups, parks groups, it's green space groups which cause the problems.
Grounds maintenance, yeah, that type of stuff.
I think there may be a point here, which is actually around sort of, it's not one size fits all. It's actually looking at the appropriate management agreement or lease, dependent on
SLA,
on the SLA with the organisation. There's tended to be a fairly standard lease that doesn't always have applicability to a sports group if it's the one that's being used for a community hall. That kind of thing. I've come across that certainly.
Some of it with assets is just permissions, like lumps of ground. It's not necessarily that even. You can use it or not use it. I got some of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you managed to capture the flavour of that then, Geraint?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Right. So
do you want to do an evaluation now? Then should we close and?
Yeah. Right. Okay. I think we better close. Okay. Everybody's happy now. Happy in the chamber?
Yeah, everyone's happy to move on now. Chair.
Great, lovely. Right, yeah, it's 20 past. Okay, so that's great. Thank you. I think we got there in the end, and a good debate there as well. Thank you. Right, date 7, date of next meeting. Next meeting will be the 6th of March, and it will be what, Geraint?
It'll be the Highway Asset Management Plan.
Right, thank you very much. As chair of this meeting, I thank members and officers for their ongoing support and contributions to the meeting. And I think there was a lot of contributions today. Good meeting, and as I said, I think that was a good report, and I think we got their conclusions clearly because it was a good report. Does help.
Yeah.
So you pass that one. I think it very clearly helps with a decent report.
Okay then.
Right. Thank
Okay,
you very much.
Is everyone happy, or did members want to do the evaluation quickly? It's only a couple of short questions, and
go on then. Let's have the evaluation.